morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Newbern in Newbern, North Carolina. I am Rebecca Shelby, your service leader this morning. We hope that you will find comfort and solace in being part of this worship service. Welcome Home by Rachel Rott. Welcome, you questioners, seekers of truth with a capital T, pilgrims longing for sanctuary, travelers needing harbor from the storm. Welcome, those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. You pushed through your fear because something told you that you deserve to belong. Welcome home. Welcome, those who braid ropes again and again. You've been there for our siblings who were just hanging on. You gave them a hand into community and told them they could rest here. Welcome, you who seek spiritual and religious community for your children and grandchildren. You entrust your young people here, and we, as a community, commit to nurture and respect them. Welcome, children and youth. You give us the gift of your wisdom, your joy, your curiosity, and your trust that we will hold all of it safe. Welcome. Welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers, not only into this space, but into our circle of belonging? Can we commit and recommit to being accountable to one another as an anti-racist, anti-oppressive community that centers marginalized voices, that listens to those voices, especially when what they are saying is hard to hear? Can we be willing to change? When we break our agreements with one another, can we offer amends? Can we be humble and generous? There is grace enough here. There is in this place the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is in this place possibility. Welcome home. Let us begin our service by enjoying our morning prelude. Thank you, Judy. That was lovely. We love coming to the UU on Sunday mornings. We greet our friends and gather in anticipation of the service. For the past month, today, and for some time into the future, until the shelter in order place is lifted, we have and will gather virtually. Although we cannot physically be together, we can do some things communally, such as each of us lighting a candle as a symbol of our gathering together. Please light your candle as I light mine. From Reverend Eric Cherry. The chalice is lit in our hearts each time that we pray for vision, long for healing, forgive our enemies, comfort our neighbors, and prepare for today's justice. In its light, our hope and compassion are renewed, and the covenantal ties that bind each to all become clear. Now, by its sacred flame, the path before us is brightened. Love prepares our way. Harmony is in view. There is no east or west, no south or north. Only a world to greet and bless with more light still. Amen. I have several joys and sorrows to share with you this morning. My first joy is that you could join us for this history-making moment at the UUFNB, our first Zoom webinar. We are all adjusting to the new normal of the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of the things we are getting adjusted to is living more in a virtual world. I hope you will forgive us if we are not as smooth as CBS in our broadcast skills. My second joy is that I have so many wonderful friends on the worship committee who have stepped up to make this service possible. It is our passion to continue to strive to connect us, even though we are practicing social distancing. A continuing sorrow is that there are many out in the world who have suffered greatly during this pandemic, losing loved ones and friends to the disease. Let us be mindful of our blessings in this time and remember those who have been less fortunate. A second sorrow is for all the young people who will not be able to have their traditional graduations over the next few weeks. The education experience that most of us cherish as a defining point in our lives will be forever marred for the class of 2020. My final joy is that spring is here. The earth renews herself each year, filling the senses with beauty. This past week was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and it should remind us that we can make changes, that good can come out of bad, and that we should hold on to hope eternally, just as the irises unfurl their lovely blossoms each year. While we may not be in our beloved sanctuary to pass the basket, we still need to pay the mortgage and keep the lights on. I would like to remind you to please mail your pledges and financial gifts to the UUFNB at 308 Meadow Street, New Bern, North Carolina 28560. Your contributions are greatly appreciated, and we endeavor to use them with utmost care. This morning's speaker needs no introduction, as she is a member of the UUFNB and has spoken to us in the past. Across town from me, but coming to your screen next, Stephanie Jones. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Rebecca. Thank you. Good morning to all. I hope everyone is well and coping with the restrictions of the current situation that is imposing this isolation on us all. My name is Stephanie Jones. Among my friends, I am Stevie. I think I might have a perspective to share on the advantages and disadvantages people have in our society that many of you are not likely to have been graced with. My experiences in life have brought me to a point of self-reflection on how they have shaped my life, and now how I view others who often struggle through their lives. I would like to share a few of my experiences and my thoughts. This presentation was on the schedule before COVID-19 took hold of the world's attention. At the time, the expectation was that I would give it to the members of this fellowship in a relatively closed situation, where the words I have to say would pass into oblivion with hardly an echo. With the pandemic came the Zoom and Facebook streaming and a potentially wider audience and a more permanent record of what I am about to say. I had to give some consideration to whether I was willing to do this. There is some risk for me. I do not know who of my neighbors might see this and take offense. While I do not think those who are of a mind to tune into a Unitarian Universalist service are of a mind to do me harm, I have no control over who will see this. This will become more clear in a moment. I should begin with a little background to give some context as to why I think my perspective and experiences are special, and why I am a little apprehensive about who might see the video that is being streamed and recorded. There are a few important facts that I need to put out on the table. First is, I grew up in a conservative religious environment where men and women had their roles and duties. They were expected to fill them and to get better at it over time. Children were strictly disciplined. The conservative Christian values like honesty, diligence, charity, self-discipline, faithfulness, self-sacrifice, dependability were embossed indelibly into my malleable young psyche. Well, that is not particularly unusual or undesirable. It goes a long way towards explaining the place I started and the changes that have occurred in my view of the world. That alone does not fully explain why I'm so concerned about the audience. My principal cause for concern, as well as my special perspective, is that I am a transgender woman. That is a fact I have been open about in this Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am among friends when I am in their presence. I have way too much male history to be secretive with friends. Secrets don't make for solid friendships anyway. However, it is not something I am as comfortable with regarding the public at large, where it is more of a need to know basis. Besides making the risky move of outing myself to complete strangers, I'm concerned with how my words will be received. My topic has the potential to be a minefield. There is the possibility that the opinions of some, I may still not have it figured out quite right yet. In that regard, they may be correct. My allotted time doesn't permit me to cover all my thoughts, so I may not always make myself fully understood. I can trust my friends to be compassionate and kind and forgiving in their critique. Strangers, especially internet strangers, however, can be vicious and cruel. But I need to have my say. Maybe those strangers are the ones that need to hear my words. So here I go. Being transgender has given me an opportunity to experience my life from two very different stations. The shift in perspective coming from the transition of living my life as a man to living as a woman has given me pause to reflect. With the context established, I want to quickly relate an experience from my early adult life. I was in my early 20s, just starting a family, married with one daughter and another on the way. Having recently relocated to Western Pennsylvania, I was looking for a way to provide for my new family. I went into the unemployment office, ran by the state, and was fortunate. The state was funding training and maintenance for the local coal mines of the area. At the time, the mines were flourishing. The cities to the east needed electricity. Western Pennsylvania had the needed energy in the form of coal. Mine it, burn it, and send the electricity eastward over high voltage power lines. There was a serious shortage of well-skilled mechanics. Most of the maintenance personnel at the time were from the mine labor ranks and not trained in the newer technology that was entering the mine. I was offered a seat in an upcoming mine maintenance training class under the auspices of Penn State. I was given a weekly stipend while attending a comprehensive program. The opportunity was available to me for a number of reasons. I was unemployed, I was intelligent, I was young, and I was apparently male. I did not really do much to deserve that gift to me. I was just the right kind of guy in the right place, time, and circumstances. I did very well with both the intellectual classwork and the hands-on shop classes. After completing the program, I was offered work at several of the mines in the region. I took a position with one of the larger ones. Once on the job, I quickly impressed management and moved in positions where my troubleshooting abilities and my work ethic from my conservative religious upbringing were valued. From that starting point, I've had much employment and financial success and recovered well from setbacks over the course of my working career. I have made considerable progress up the socio-economic ladder. My innate intelligence, that early educational boost toward my first really good job, and my religiously informed worldview that stressed character building and self-responsibility have served me well. That training opportunity, that gift provided to me by the state of Pennsylvania, was a large portion of the foundation upon which I built the remainder of my life. All the while, being transgender cast a long shadow over much of my life. I did not come to terms with that shadow until the past few years. My worldview, which pushed me to overcome my shortcomings, or at the very least, muddle through no matter what, helped me to manage to do what was in my mind expected of me as a man, husband, and father, even when the shadow was particularly dark. As I said, I succeeded and recovered from the setbacks. You might suspect that I could readily come to think that I was overwhelmingly responsible for my own success. If you do, you are right. I had started out with little to my name, with a real thorn in my psyche, pushed and muddled through, and made it to a reasonably comfortable place in life. I am ashamed to fess up to this, but I was self-congratulatory, self-righteous. I believed I was the all-important factor in achieving my success. I expected that others could and should be able to make their lives better for themselves. A little hard work, dedication, perseverance should do the trick. And if they failed to do that, it was largely their own fault. Now, I was not a selfish person. I was generous within my means, I think. Just that I believed that a person could succeed if only they did what they needed to be done. Implicit in that are the assumptions that they have the wherewithal to do that and are not being prevented by insurmountable barriers. Events of the past few years have tempered much of my self-righteousness. I hope. I was forced eventually to deal with that long shadow of being transgender. In doing that, I had to come to terms with an aspect of myself that I came to realize I had no choice in and little power over. I had only the power to choose a path in life that I hoped would make the most of a bad situation. In the process of figuring the gender thing out, I got to know much about the struggles of other transgender individuals I found and befriended. We shared with one another our struggles and fears. Eventually, most all of us included, we could not choose whether we are transgender. We figured out that we only get to have a little bit of say in what we do about it. Many of those I've come to know have transitioned as I have. Not all have been as fortunate as I. My losses have been relatively few, other than a major hiccup with my former health club over the bathroom locker room situation, and a couple of friends who have stepped away. I've not had any real problems in my day-to-day life. While I have sacrificed the advantages of being male, I have not incurred all the many disadvantages that many of my transgender friends have. I am an older woman. Society expects an older woman to be more stately than pretty. My voice, with its lower tones, doesn't get too badly scrutinized for its lack of feminine qualities. So I have managed to blend in rather well. As a newly minted septuagenarian, I have already made my small fortune in life. I am retired, mostly, and don't need to find work or keep a job, though my work relationships remain largely intact. I am on Medicare, which covers the usual, as well as my transgender medical needs rather well. Name and documentation changes went smoothly and completely. Getting that done greatly eased some worries of getting pulled over by a less than understanding police officer. Checking my identification. Even here in North Carolina, if I'm ever challenged in a restroom, I am able to be indignant and have the papers to back me up. My family and social life has not been turned completely upside down. In my case, life is still good. Many of my friends are not so fortunate. So many transgender individuals have lost marriages and family. Some struggle with getting even their normal health care needs met. Too many have problems with employment and housing. Yes, there are success stories other than mine, but far too many tragedies. Some have just given up on their transition, even given up on life itself. Yearly, we set aside a day to remember the many who have been murdered over the recent years because they are transgender. These are the kinds of things I feared could have happened to me. I have been speaking of the fears and challenges of transgender individuals, fears and challenges that I am most acquainted with personally. Many other disadvantaged groups of people have echoes of my concerns in their own fears and challenges. Many people find themselves in places where there are no good choices, sometimes no choices at all. I have come to realize that I'm very fortunate, even in my own new station. Speaking of being fortunate, you recall that young man of about 20 years of age I spoke of earlier who walked into an unemployment office. I want to tell you about something that happened not too long after that intelligent, able-bodied young man got fortunate with that training program. At about the same time as he started working his new job, as a minor, there were some young women who showed up to put their applications in at some of the very same thriving coal mines, looking for one of those well-paying jobs. They were not so readily received. They met resistance, mostly from the union, the United Mine Workers of America. Those women had to fight for less than what had been served to that young man on a platter. The justifications for the resistance were typically patriarchal. Coal mining was not a proper place for a woman to be working. Those jobs should go to men who have to support families. Ironically, many of those women were single mothers, heads of households, capable of making hard choices for themselves. Oh, and then the chivalrous defense of women's privacy. The bathroom locker room problem. There was no private place for them to shower and relieve themselves. My, what shall we do? Deja vu all over again. People can be really dumb when they don't want to deal with something. Did those women not deserve the opportunity that young man was given? Deserved or not, it simply was not made available. Actually, the opportunity was actively denied to them. Not everyone has fortune shining upon them. I'm left to ponder as how much of my good fortune came at the expense of another. I do not discount the value of my hard work and dedication. In fact, I expect everyone to put forth their best efforts. But it is problematic to determine what constitutes one's best effort. That being said, I have become much more aware of just how much of what I have and where I am in life, even after my transition, is the result of my good fortune in having society not simply allowing me to achieve, but actually helping me achieve. I also realized that everyone else is not quite so fortunate. Society does not always help where it can and where it should. I have been blessed with things that are too often actively denied to so many. Blessings that made an immense difference in my outcome. More than that, I have benefited from living as a white, male, Christian, cisgender, and heterosexual of above average intelligence, able-bodied, of basically English descent with an unremarkable Christian name from a reasonably functional family of moderate economic means in the United States of America, where so much of my life. Not a one of those attributes is something that I myself worked to attain. Although those characteristics did not always help, they often did. For sure, they never hindered my efforts. Most all of my life, I went merrily along, unaware of their importance in my outcome. Most of my life, I did not see a police interaction as any cause for concern. I did not worry about being in a place I did not have a right to be, nor did I have much concern about interacting with a man I did not know well. I had little need to worry about traveling alone. I never worried about my gender when looking for work or performing my job. I was never devalued for some physical attribute obvious to someone else. I have been privileged and I have come to realize that is so. In my past, I have been blessed with the sorts of things that have been and still are being denied to so many others simply because they are not white-skinned, or not male, or not Christian, or not cisgender and heterosexual, or not particularly intelligent, or not able-bodied, or not of Northern European descent, or not from a caring, financially stable family situation, or not living in a first world country. And heaven help them if they come up short on more than just one count. My transition to living as my authentic self has given me some perspective not afforded to most in my former station. I'm now more careful not to do anything to initiate a traffic stop. I'm at a higher risk now of verbal, physical, and sexual assault than a man or even a cisgender woman. And that is sinking into my consciousness. I'm just now learning some of the vital lessons taught to young ladies by their mothers. I've been denied service by a business when it became known I am transgender. I have been mansplained about how critical that overpriced radiator flush is. I lived with a hidden trait that I was told made me disordered and evil. I am a minority variant of human beings that in the eyes of some is the epitome of all that is evil in the world and fit only for extermination. In the eyes of some, I and the rest of my kind are the reason COVID-19 has been visited upon us, just as other minorities have been demonized. I am the scapegoat now. At one time, I checked off all the boxes. I no longer can. Many never could. I asked myself and you, why should any of us need to worry about those check boxes at all? In the past, I was on the sidelines, minding my own business. No longer. I am now in the battle to rid the world of those check boxes. We are in the midst of a health crisis. I don't know how important this period will be in history when it's all over. I had hoped, just a footnote, I now fear we will not be so fortunate. I hope you are taking it all seriously, but calmly. We find ourselves in circumstances beyond our control. It should give you pause to be both introspective and circumspective. Are you someone who is, as I was, self-congratulatory, not in favor of doing for another what you take credit for having accomplished on your own? thinking if you could do it, if you had to do it for yourself, then why can't, why shouldn't, why don't others do it for themselves? And now that you've done it, why should you foot the bill or suffer inconvenience for what you see as the inability or mistakes or even laziness of another? I hope you have a bit of a sense that it is not always easy for others. Not everyone enjoys the advantages you might have. Current events beyond your control are putting your life and livelihood in jeopardy. How secure is that home you live in, that job you hold, that health insurance you have dependent on? Have you been checking your 401k more often? Have you had an elective yet essential surgery postponed, putting your well-being in further risk? I hope you realize just how much you have is because of what all of society provides you. Are you really that good or just really fortunate? The coronavirus does not care how many of the boxes you can check off or your level of achievement. If you can check off most of the boxes but find yourself a little uneasy about the future, imagine the plight of others less fortunate than you. If you have received the boost up the ladder or just started up on a higher rung than many, but worry about all you have accumulated, trying to fathom the despair of those who have been struggling their whole lives to simply subsist and are today and every day at risk of losing even that. I've told you of some of what I see in myself in my life. I'm not proud of all I see there. Our reflex is to go on defense in hard times. But I challenge you to use these times as a mirror to reflect on yourself and your life in relation to the lives of others. Can you dare to look? As a Christian, I am partial to the golden rule uttered by Jesus and found in Matthew 7:12. In everything, then, do to others as you would have them do to you. Early on, I spoke of my conservative Christian values. I hope that statement, that perspective, jarred your moral and ethical sensibilities. Those values are not the sole property of conservative Christians. They are the possessions of loving human beings. They are the tools with which to do unto others as you would have them do to you. Fill your tool chest with the tools. Hone their edges. Use them to help me build a better home for all of us. Unitarian Universalist principles affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person and aspire to justice and equity and compassion in human relations. Taken together, those principles capture the essence in the golden utterance of Jesus. Most all faiths subscribe to the same ideal. In these tumultuous and uncertain times, all of us will do well to be more introspective about ourselves, more empathetic towards others, and rededicate ourselves to fulfilling whatever version of the golden rule guides our individual lives. I wish you health and happiness during the times ahead. My friends, love one another.
Thank you, Stephanie. You have given us much to ponder this morning. We are learning to live our principles in new and different ways. Coffee Klatch is now available virtually via Zoom on Mondays. You should have gotten an email from Stephanie Jones with a Zoom invitation. She is willing to help you get up and running with Zoom if you need help. Remember to check your voicemail. People from the UU are making calls to check in with folks as we want to make sure all of our friends are doing well. Would you like to help call people? Contact Tom Shoup. Our children are meeting via Zoom on Sunday mornings. If you have kids or grandkids that would like to join in on their service, please contact Andrea. We also have Swing Time, a story time with Christina Martian, available on our Facebook page. Do you need pastoral care? Reverend Charlie is available to speak with you. Please reach out and let him know you would appreciate a call. I don't know who the author of this poem is. It was written in 1869, right after the Civil War, and republished during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. I find that the words are as true now as when they were first penned. And people stayed at home and read books and listened, and they rested and did exercises and made art and played and learned new ways of being and stopped and listened more deeply. Someone meditated, someone prayed, someone met their shadow, and people began to think differently, and people healed. And in the absence of people who lived in ignorant ways, dangerous, meaningless, and heartless, the earth also began to heal. And when the danger ended and people found themselves, they grieved for the dead and made new choices and dreamed of new visions and created new ways of living and completely healed the earth just as they were healed. Together we lit this candle to join our hearts and souls in a time of solemn reflection. As we extinguish the candle, let us stay strong, connected, and caring until we meet again. Shalom, salam, ashe, namaste, peace.
Mercy. Masisi, amen, Masisi, amen, 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 Siyaka Dumisa, Masisi, amen, Siyaka Dumisa, Masisi, amen, Siyaka Dumisa, Masisi, amen, 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 Siyaka Dumisa, Masisi,